Good day everybody, Doug Walsh here with Dark Horse Stables, and this is my lovely assistant for this session, Carlos. He is 17-3 Hansel Francais Thoroughbred Cross. He's been part of my family for a while now. He's really cool. I love him to death. He's a neat guy. So thank you so much, Vanna White, for being my assistant today. Anyway, so we're going to be talking about tools, and tools is anything that we're going to use in an aid to help teach our horse. We want to make sure we use the right tools, and we want to make sure we use those tools in a way that's going to help our horses, not hinder them in their understanding of how we can communicate on a better level with them. So first thing we talk about is halters. So he is wearing a lovely Naughty Girls white rope halter in warm blood size. It fits him lovely. And you'll see in my hand what I have here is I have a leather halter, traditional leather halter. This is a really nice halter, but it's more of like, I would look at it as like a lady's nice pair of high heels or men wearing nice dress shoes, as you're not going to be wearing those high heels or those dress shoes out to do any CrossFit or do any hiking or anything, or cross training. So when I say that is that the leather halter fits on a horse and it really moves back and forth. There's nothing to keep it really in place from sliding around. And if you have a horse that's not listening to you, a lot of people will take a chain shank and they'll run it up through here and through this little part here and go over the nose and catch it here. So then when they put pressure on it, the chain is digging into the horse's nose, the top of their bridge, and it puts a lot of pressure on them. And then of course they'll listen because it hurts them. It doesn't feel good. That's not a principle that I believe in training. And this is a fine halter to use once your horse really understands how to have that connection with you and that partnership with you. We talk about dance partners. It's like you don't want to have a dance partner that's ripping you all around the floor. You want to have a nice solid connection with that person so you can move together and understand each other's energy at that time. So it's the same thing when we get our horse to that point. We can go to a show and put a leather halter on if we like that. We want their name on the side, we can do that. But really, I don't believe we should be using this halter until they understand how to be in that same partnership with us and yielding to energy from the halter itself. So I'm going to put this down for a minute. And so we're going to talk about the rope halter. So Carlos's rope halter, as you can see, just like and I've got one right here so I can kind of show you, is that this double line here, right here, goes over the bridge of the nose. You can see this bottom part here where there's two hoops. That's where the lead line attaches to. So this is going to go over his nose, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go over his neck, just like we've seen. You can see kind of here that we're going to go over the neck, and you'll see that when we have it on like this, there's a little hoop here that this is going to go over his neck, behind his poll, and then it's going to slide down through this little loop. You're going to go back towards his eyes, and then stay above the knot, and then back towards itself. So if you see that, you can see how that is. And what this knot does to do it this way is that if you pull really, really hard on it, if he pulls hard on it, you can just push like this and it'll loosen right back up. It's pretty simple, works pretty well. So that's the knot that we like to use on that. So you can see with him, I'll ask him to turn this way just a hair. You can see that what I'm going to do is I'm going to come through, I'm going to come over the neck, through the hole, and then when I get through there, I'm going to come down so the tail is sticking out on this side of the knot. Then we're going to go behind the knot, just above it, towards his eye, and then feed back through itself to his hind end. So if you do not have this little hoop right here, then we are not doing it correctly. So that's how we want to tie that knot on there. And when we tie it, we want to have roughly, so I got to make this a little bit tighter for him. We want to have 3 fingers underneath the back part, under the throat there. So I want to have, there's a knot on the back. So there's a knot right here, as you can see. And we want to have 3 fingers between this knot and the throat of our horse. So we've got that now. And then we want to make sure that this is sitting about 2 fingers below the cheekbones. So we have a nice fit now on him that is not going to slide around and go up and bother his eyes or move all around. So these knots are pressure points. And so the way that a rope halter works is that when we have that on there, if I ask him to move off of this, you're going to see this knot will hit a pressure point here, and he'll want to move away from that pressure. Now we want him to be as light as possible, so that's what the rope halter allows us to do. Now there's some halters that have 4 knots along the top, so they have another 2, one here and one here, that hit these pressure points. And if you have a horse that really is stubborn, doesn't want to listen, and really wants to pull away from you, that's a halter that we can go to, but it's something that I don't typically use and don't need to use. And with our tools, we might have to use something like that for a few days, and then we go right back to just the traditional 2-knot rope halter. I use a lovely company out of Seattle. They're called Knotty Girls, and they make all my halters for me. And that's Knotty, and they're an awesome company. And we use all yachting line, so it has energy to it, and it's nice and soft. I really love these a lot. You can get them in all different colors and so on and so forth. So once we have the halter fitting right, the next thing we're going to do is look at a lead line. Now, same company, Knotty Girls, I use a 1/2-inch lead line that I have them make for me with a nice brass bull snap on it. And you can replace it if this ever breaks or gets the spring breaks, you can replace them, which is nice. So the cool thing about these here is this is a 12-foot line. I like to use a 12-foot line to no shorter than a 12-foot line when working with a horse, because if I have a horse that's 8.5 feet long and I'm working with them and they want to try to turn around or they want to do something, I'm going to be free of them from kicking me because I have a line that's long enough where I can get some distance, but not too long. So once again, I use a 1/2-inch line. You see that this line has movement to it. So if I want him to back up or to do anything, I want to be able to be very light with that. It's hard for him to do it on cross ties, but I want to have him be able to be as light as possible to send energy through this line. So a traditional cotton line, you're not going to get that same movement with just the littlest tiny bit. So if I do this up here, I can feel it down on this end on my left hand. So it's very important to have the right line. Now we use 12 footers that I said. You can do a 15 foot, you can do a 25 foot. I've got a line here that is a 25 foot line that I use if I'm working on some different things with horses and I need them to have a little bit more space for me. So, but traditionally we're going to be in that 12 foot, 15 foot range. So now that we've talked about our lines and our halters, we're going to start talking about other tools that we use. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off here and I'll wrap it back up over here. You're being so good. I appreciate your help. So we're going to talk about tools like flags, whips, things of that nature. So the first thing I have here is a flag, traditional flag. You've probably seen these before, seen how people use them. One of the biggest problems that we have when we think about horsemanship is desensitizing a horse to a flag. We want to get them used to it. We want to get them used to things. Well, I am not a believer in desensitizing horses from things. My belief is to make them as sensitive as possible to our aids and the energy that's going towards them, and teach them how to think about things that might frighten them so they don't go into a flight status, that they can focus on being in the present and knowing that they can that they're going to be fine, especially when we're around them. So if I have a flag like this, a lot of people wave this flag. You're getting a good yawning. A lot of people wave this flag around. They'll wave it around. They'll wave it around. And it's hard for me to do it in the barn to kind of show you, but you can see all my other videos where we work on this. But he should not do anything if I'm waving this around. But if I tap him on the shoulder, if I put any energy towards his shoulder or the hind end or towards his front end, he'll move away from that energy. He'll move from that. So I very recently have a horse in for training that was so desensitized to everything that, like, you could tap him on the shoulder with the flag, you could do everything, he didn't even move. So that's not the right way to train our horses. We want them to be sensitive when we ask for them to move against the energy that's coming from us, not the flag. It's not the flag that's putting the energy out, it's us. This flag by itself will not do anything, maybe if it's really windy out, but will not do anything unless it's attached to us. So remember, it's our energy through that flag, just like a golfer, right? The club is not going to hit the ball 400 yards. You can have the same club, 4 different golfers, and they're going to hit it 4 different distances based on the energy and the power coming through that golfer to swing through the club into the ball to send the ball driving down the range. So every tool we have, it's about our energy. How much energy are we using? We talk about our energy. If I have a horse that's really sensitive like Carlos, I want to make sure when I'm working with him that I want him to be as light as possible to this, but I don't want him to be so light that he's afraid of it. So that's where we want to make sure that they understand the difference. So if I have this flag and I'm moving it to his left and right, up and down, over the top of him, in front of him, and I'm not applying any energy towards him at all, then it's going to not affect him in any bit at all. But if I ask him to move the front end over, it should be very light to do that. So that's the proper way to use the flag. There's 3 ways I like with the flag that it can be used, and the same thing with like the stick and string. It's an extension of my arm. If I want to get to the back end and have him move over a little bit, I can use it for that. If I want to pet him with it, I can pet him with it. I can say, hey buddy, you're fine, this is a good thing. If I ask him to move away from that energy that's being projected through my body, through my hand, to the end of the flag, I can use that as well. So that's our flag. Next thing we're going to have is our dressage whip. So dressage whip is, it's a great tool. You know, we don't want to misuse our whips. You know, I know we call them a whip, right? But they're not for that intention. It's the dressage whip is a great tool to use if you're teaching a horse to do when you get on their back, any lateral work, move the front end over, move the hind end over. The key with that is that you want to make sure, just like with our groundwork before we transfer it to the saddle, is we want to make sure that we're using our other aids, and this is just a tool to teach him. So this is an aid to teach him to move over. So if I'm going to ask with my left leg to move him over to the right, and he doesn't do it, I might tap with this whip at the exact same time. Just tap, and then he moves, and I release the pressure immediately as soon as he moves, and I ask again the same time I'm asking from my left side of my body. So we want it to be in conjunction. So many people get the timing off, and we want to make sure our timing is correct. If I ask him to move over to the right off my left leg, and I ask him with the whip, and then he starts to move, and then I tap him with my leg, or vice versa, he's never going to learn properly because the timing's not there to teach him that this is supposed to coincide with this. So be very careful with your whips too, as we don't want to ever really leash into our horses with this, because we want them to be as light as possible to the aids, not to become heavy to the aids. We talk about spurs. I don't have any spurs here with me. I don't wear spurs. But if you're going to wear spurs, you want to make sure that you have spur awareness, that every stride you're not bouncing your spurs off of the rib cage of the horse, because that will make him numb to the spur. And then he'll become heavier, not lighter. So it's very important that we use these in the right way. So the next tool that I have here is a stick and string. It's got a fancy name, stick and string. So this is a good tool to be able to use for horses when we want to have them get used to things. So if we want them to get used to having this go back and forth, having it go over the top of them, having them get used to sniffing it, seeing it once again, it's just an aid. We talk about this as just, I can pet him with it, I can love all over him with this, and then I can ask it to go over the top of him, and he'll know that nothing bad's going to happen to him. And then I can also use it as a sending device to be able to move his body over left and right. And he was a very spooky horse when I got him, very nervous horse. So working with him to make sure that he gets to, and what he likes to do is he likes to check things out, see what's going on first with them. But so then I should be able to, and I don't have enough room in the barn here, but I should be able to take this and move it back and forth like this, and hit the ground on all 4 sides of him, swing it over the top of him. He will not have an issue with that. Remember, there's no energy being projected towards him at all. If we use this to project energy towards him, then he'll move away from that energy as light as possible. So very similar to the flag on how we use this. We can also use this to go throw it around his legs. If I have a horse that's that really is sensitive with their legs and likes to kick out and things like that, is I can have them on their halter on with their line, and I can ask just to swing around their legs with this. and get them used to that feeling of things being around their legs and their feet. That's a safer way. So that is that. Our last thing is a lunge whip. And the lunge whip is a really big thing for anybody that lunges. And the problem with the lunge whip is that a lot of people tend to go out into the lunge arena and they just take this whip and they just crack it right in the air, crack it right in the air, and the horse becomes afraid of things that get cracked in the air and things that are moving around and flying. And so if we're going to use this, we want to use this, and not so much as a whip, but as a guide to go towards the energy of the hind end of the horse if we want their hind end to move. And it's the same thing with our flag or anything else that we're using. If we want them to just do a smaller circle and step up under with that inside hip and through the rib cage, we'll apply energy towards the middle of their rib cage to ask them to step up under and move forward. So if we're lunging a horse, we don't ever want to just whip and crack this thing, because it's going to make them afraid of everything around them, or it's going to make them desensitized to it, and then they're not going to continue to progress forward in the way you want them to. They'll become more and more dull to it. So we want to teach them that when this energy is coming behind them, that they'll move forward and they'll stay at that pace that they're supposed to be at. So once again, just like with all of our other tools, it's all about placing energy in the right place. If I am looking at you right now and I decide to look down, so I'm looking down right now, and most of you are probably thinking when you're watching this video that I'm looking down towards your left knee, right? So if I look to this side, I'm going to be looking at your right knee. So you can feel where that energy is being applied. So it's the same thing with them when we're working with tools. We want to have the tools that apply it in the right area. We think about dressage horses can do an entire Grand Prix test and know all these micro little movements to do just off the smallest little things, aids that we're asking. And it's the same thing when we're teaching them anything, is that they're very smart animals. They can move to the lightest bit of pressure and learn so many things. So we don't need to be heavy with our horses. We need to be light with our horses. So I hope you found this to be educational for you and how we use our tools. I hope you enjoy the rest of the sessions. We're going to be talking about saddle fit and bit fitting, bridle fitting before we get under saddle with our horses in our sessions coming up. And I'm so thankful that Carlos has been such a good guy here. I'm sorry if you hear some rain in the background. We had a thunder shower start to come through here, so it may be a little bit noisy. But if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, Doug at naturalhorsemanship.com, and have a wonderful and blessed day. Thanks so much and take care.